What's up, everybody? I am Jordan from Wednesday Night Warhammer, and my favorite army to play is Tyranids. I'm sure that's a shock to everyone, but one of my favorite things about Tyranids is how well they move block. In the game of Warhammer 40k, they are one of the best factions at move blocking. And in this video, I'm going to talk all about what move blocking is, how to do it, and I will also discuss some pitfalls that might happen when you try to move block some units, and of course how to avoid those mistakes and how to better your game. Let's get right into it. Getting better at something, you first have to define it. So what is move blocking? Move blocking is the strategy where you move your units just out of engagement range, closest you can to enemy models without charging them. This is going to prevent your enemy's models from moving anywhere, because just as you couldn't move into engagement range of them, they can't move into engagement range of you. Doing this properly can effectively delete enemy units for a turn. A strategy that I often use is I'll focus on one side of the board, point my exocrans, my mouse up, just whatever, at one side of the board, and then I will use my gargoyles to screen off another side of the board. So effectively, yes, I am only actually deleting, killing one side of the board's enemy units, but for that turn and for that span of time, I'm also deleting the other side of the board and controlling the other side of the board. And while I'm doing that, it's going to allow for my units, my Gene Stealers or my Hive Tyrant, any counterpunch threat that I have out there, to advance up the board safely behind the loving wings of gargoyles. Remember, in Warhammer 40k, if you're able to do that, if you're able to control the board, you are also able to control the game. Now, why are Tyranids so good at move blocking? It's very simple. We have efficient units with high model counts within those units. So very low point cost units with a lot of models in the unit. I'm talking about units like Gargoyles and Hormagaunts. They're going to be able to move up the board very, very fast with lots of models within the unit and deny a whole bunch of space on the battlefield for your opponent. In addition, things like Von Ryan's Leapers. Now, they don't have a very large model count within the unit, typically 3 to 6. However, they are very fast. So they get right up close to enemy models, and you can really single out 1 or 2 units with just a 3-man Von Ryan squad, and it can effectively control whatever part of the board that you want and really leave your opponent behind in their deployment zone. Last but certainly not least, Tyranids are really good with spore mines. Being able to create spore mines, there's a couple of tricks. I'm going to go into detail about one trick specifically in this video. Spore mines do a great job at denying areas of the battlefield, not only with their advance and charge or the advance denial area, but also just with movement. But enough talking about all of that. Let's get into some tabletop simulator examples to show you. Okay, we're in TTS just so I can clearly show you how move blocking works, why it works, and how I would use it to be incredibly effective, especially against a melee army like orcs. So what I have here is I have a 10-man squad of gargoyles all strung out all the way through here. They are still in coherency because of the dog bone at the end, and the dog bone at the end there, and everybody's within 2 inches of 2 other beautiful bugs. So the way that move blocking works is these gargoyles are going to be just outside of engagement range of every single one of these orc models. Because of course, when you move, you can't finish your move inside engagement range unless you are charging. That means that orcs also need to follow that same rule. So when my gargoyles are right here, just outside of engagement range, the orcs cannot actually move any closer until they are charging. And I'm sure they will be charging. But because they also don't have fly, they cannot go over or through any of my models here, which is pretty great. So if I'm trying to control the board with these gargoyles, which is my favorite thing to do with gargoyles, honestly, then I have set up a perfect time for this brick of Gene Stealers over here to stage and in the next turn be able to move out. If I'm playing Vanguard, which I am right now, advance and charge these knobs after they are forced to charge these gargoyles. Now, this is a very basic scenario. Of course, we only have 3 units on the board, but it's just showing you if you're able to set up scenarios like this with these gargoyles all the way strung out like this, move blocking these knobs and allowing for one of your important units over here, like the Gene Stealers and Broodlord, to kind of stage for a turn and be safe, and then advance and charge and get into stuff that is very, very important that your opponent probably doesn't want you to touch. Move blocking. It's pretty cool. Second example with move blocking and why Tyranids are very, very good at it is they have access to spore mines. We have biovores. We can shoot a spore mine every single one of our turns and create this beautiful spore mine. Now, it's only one model on a very tiny base, but yes, it can still do an effective job of move blocking very specific units. We all know that it cancels out the advance within 6. You can't begin or end an advance within 6 with a spore mine. So against armies like orcs, like I'm setting up to play against right here, that's very, very useful. In addition, like Blood Angels, Liberator Assault Group, and then a lot of more like Eldar, I think, have access to advance and charge with Banshees, I believe, as well. So that's a one really good way that you can set up your spore mine and make sure that your opponent's advances are a little bit more difficult. However, with the 9-inch away deep strike rules with the spore mine, you can also move block faster units. Because of course, when an enemy model moves, it cannot end within that engagement range that we were talking about before, within 1 inch of enemy models. So that means this truck cannot land within 1 inch of this spore mine. And so if I've set up this spore mine 9.1 inches away, of course, and I have, this truck normally would move 12 inches. However, because the spore mine is 9 inches away, it can't move its full movement. It would have to stop right outside of 1 inch. So it'd have to stop right there, about. So yes, it is only around 4 inches taken off with a unit like this. But however, that's a pretty strong, control of the battlefield right there. Being able to tell your opponent's transports or being able to tell your opponent's faster units that they can't move their full distance by just putting a spore mine down. Really, really nifty trick. An additional thing you can do in move blocking is not only deny your opponent from moving forward to charging your units, you can also deny your opponent from moving forward to getting onto objectives and scoring secondaries and really just establishing their game plan. So what I have here is, again, we're playing Vanguard Onslaught because it's a really cool detachment. I have Von Ryan's Leapers here. They're directly in front of some Gene Stealers that have scouted forward. I won the first turn roll off, and that's kind of sometimes where you want to be with Vanguard Onslaught. And these Von Ryan's Leapers are just 9 inches off of your opponent's deployment zone. So we have a 10-man squad of Orc Boys with a War Boss. And we have an Orc truck right here that we really don't want to be able to activate into these Gene Stealers effectively next turn. So what we're going to do is we're going to move these Von Ryans up. They move 10. They move super, super fast. We're going to move up here. Here. And then here, of course. And we're going to check a couple of things. The things that we want to check is make sure we are outside of 1 inch of engagement of everybody. Boom, perfect. And we want to make sure that we're in coherency too. So all of these Von Ryans are within 2 inches. And we can actually scoot this guy a little bit this way. We can scoot this Von Ryan a little bit this way. Boom, boom. Okay, cool. So right there. So what this is going to do is this truck cannot move forward basically at all because its hole is too big. It can't scoot around the Von Ryan Leaper. It can't really go this way because of the terrain and then the other Orc Boys. So it's kind of stuck here. It's probably going to charge the Von Ryans and then just be sad. These Orc Boys is not too far off from the same thing. They can go this way, I guess. But the real goal that we're trying to do, at least in this scenario, is keep our Gene Stealers safe for a turn so they can jump out and then activate into, hopefully, both of these squads at once. All right? So the idea is if your opponent charges these Von Ryans, and of course, the Orc Boys and the truck, even with the Von Ryans fight first, probably going to clear them up. Then the Gene Stealers are going to be able to come out and at least tie up the truck and definitely kill the Orc Boys as well. So just something to think about when you are deploying, especially if you're playing an aggressive army like Vanguard Onslaught. If you're able to use units like Von Ryan's Leapers like this to have a very early game move block, it can be really, really, really good for you in scoring points and then also denying your opponent's points. Just one point of note, I just set it up like this just to be easier in this scenario. I would not suggest putting your Von Ryan's Leapers out here as a deployment zone or as a deployment since they move 10 inches. And since you have Advanced in Charge and Vanguard Onslaught, just put them behind this wall so that they can't be shot. Turn one can't really be activated into. So in case you don't win the roll off, then you can move up just like that with an advanced roll, and they'll probably be able to do the same job that we described before. Move blocking your enemy's units can be incredibly helpful to your game plan. However, if you make a mistake with it, it can also be really bad because you can end up losing a couple of units instead of just one if you're not very specific with how you move your units. So in the next section of the video, I'm going to talk about some pitfalls that you might, be aware of when you're trying to use this technique, and some strategies in order to make sure that you don't make those mistakes. We will show TTS examples again, just because I think it's a good visual aid. But in addition, we need to be thinking of, can my opponent use 2 units to charge my unit and then potentially pile in to a more important unit that we want to try and keep safe? So we want to keep track of that. We want to make sure that we are encircling the unit so that they are not able to just kind of juke our existing unit and just go around them. And then we're going to talk about flying units because move blocking flying units is way more difficult than just units that are walking on the ground, but it is possible. You are able to move block just a little bit. Back in TTS, and we're talking about mistakes that could happen within move blocking. If you don't move block correctly, it could actually be very detrimental to your own game plan. And in this case right here, this is probably the worst case scenario. You're trying to move block. Again, we're playing against orcs. You have 10 knobs right here, and then you have 10 orc boys right over here with sluggas and choppas. So what your idea was, you wanted to block these gargoyles out here. Of course, make sure that the knobs can't come forward and the orc boys can't come forward. Yes, the knobs are not going to be able to come forward too much. Yeah, they're going to only be able to move up that much. However, let's say that both of these units charge the gargoyles. Okay, they're all in. I'm not going to roll any dice or anything. We're just going to kind of cowabunga right here. Boom, that's going to be a mess, I'm sure. Okay, those orc boys are right there. And then let's say these knobs also charge in with the into the gargoyles. It's going to be a mess again. My apologies. Cool. Yeah, they're fine. Can you tell that's how I actually play orcs? Oh, I made it worse. Okay. Anyways, so these orcs are right here. What's going to happen? The way that fights go is one unit is picked first. They're going to, when they're selected to attack, they are going to first pile in. Then they're going to make their attacks against anything within engagement range, and then they will consolidate, of course. So what the orc player would do, if they know the flow of combat, is these orc boards, they're going to target and they're going to pile in first. They're going to go into the gargoyles here. 10 orc boys are going to make super quick work of 10 gargoyles. Easy peasy. There's no doubt in my mind that these orc boys will then be able to pick up the gargoyles. Now, here's the problem. Is these gene stealers are too close behind the gargoyles. So since these knobs all made a charge, they are still eligible to pile in and then make attacks. So after all of these gargoyles are gone, almost all of these knobs are going to be able to pile in and get into combat with your gene stealers. So instead of putting your gargoyles up front and blocking 1 to 2 units, you have given them gargoyles as well as giving them your gene stealers and broodlord. Do not do that. What you need to do in order to prevent that from happening in this scenario is you need to make sure that these gene stealers are at least 4 inches away from the back of the base of any gargoyles. So like right here, we would be perfect. And it's 4 inches because 3-inch pile in and consolidate, of course. So the furthest that this knob would be able to go is like out to here. So all of these knobs would not be able to pile in and activate into these gene stealers after our beautiful gargoyles have died, of course. Hope that makes sense. That is definitely a trap that you can put upon yourself. Really make sure that there's a secure distance between your screening unit and your very, very important, beautiful bug unit. So here's a scenario where we've tried to move block with the gargoyles, and things that we've tried to keep protected is we want our winged hive tyrant over here to be protected, and then we want our raveners over here to be protected as well. This is a big old brick of Mega Knobs and Ghazghkull Thraka, so we really don't want our opponent's unit to be able to activate into either of those units. On this side, we've done a pretty good job with the Hive Tyrant here. There's going to be, it's really not super possible for this Orc unit to activate into the Hive Tyrant. Even if they were in the wall and they rolled a 6, he would move, I believe, 5. So he would move over here. And then he would need to move like a 6 over there. He's just not really going to be able to charge the Winged Hive Tyrant. At least I would not attempt that charge. However, what we've made the mistake of over here is the Raveners. Yes, these Mega Knobs are going to have to move right here, and kind of their movement is kind of stopped a little bit by this gargoyle right here, maybe even this gargoyle. However, you can just move right here, and this entire squad is probably going to be able to get like a 5 or a 6-inch charge into the Raveners. So when you're move blocking, check all the units around the unit that you don't want to activate to make sure that all of your units are safe. And a good way to do that is to, instead of just being in the way, is really try to encircle your opponent's units as much as possible. Meaning, like these gargoyles right here, there's a big old U around these Mega Knobs and Ghazghkull himself. So really the only option is to go straight into these gargoyles and activate into them, or to go all the way around. And that's not something that orcs, I think, want to do. Another thing just to talk about with pitfalls and move blocking is if the orcs have a shooting unit. You know, if these Mega Knobs roll hot with their guns or whatever, if Ghazghkull does really well with his clearing, understand the distance of where the gargoyles are as opposed to the units that you want to keep safe. So if the orcs have moved up here, they're an inch out from all of the gargoyles, and their shooting rolls really hot, and they clear all of the gargoyles in their shooting phase. Now these orcs are going to be eligible to charge the Winged Hive Tyrant or maybe even the Raveners. So be wary of the distance of that front of the screening unit's base and to the front of your important model's base. So right here, that's only 5 or 6 inches. So if this Mega Knob goes here, the gargoyles are all killed in the orc shooting phase, then that's probably only a 6 or a 7-inch charge into the Winged Hive Tyrant, and that's not really the chance that I would want to take as well. So be wary of your opponent being able to clear screens and shooting as well. So I would probably scoot this Hive Tyrant 3 or 4 inches backwards, and let's check where this gargoyle and where this Mega Knob is. It's a 7-inch charge, something like that. So I would probably be interested in scooting my Raveners back just a little bit as well, just to prevent that screen clearing option and then charging as well. Things to keep note of, for sure. Yes, and a couple more things to keep in note is subscribing to Wednesday Night Warhammer, liking and commenting, doing all those YouTube things. When you subscribe to Wednesday Night Warhammer, you will get weekly battle reports streamed on Wednesdays. It's the namesake of the channel. That's how it started out, and it's still going. In addition, you're going to get Tyranid tactics every week. I post these videos up every single week, so if this video is something that you enjoyed, I'll look forward to it next week when something else gets popped up there. In addition, I'm doing Army List review shows on Monday afternoons around 4:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you want your Army List review, go ahead and copy and paste it in our community tab in the post section, and I'll take a look at it as soon as I can. And last but certainly not least, help us reach 10,000 subscribers. It's a goal that we're putting in front of us right now, and I would love it if you joined us on that journey. Anyways, thanks for watching. All right, everybody, that's it for this week's video. As a reminder, comment, like, subscribe. If you do not have a comment to post, tell me what you think about the new chapter approved deck that's coming out. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Perhaps I'll make a video on it. All right, anyways, thank you again for watching. I will see you Wednesday. Bye.